This is our third lesson on building a godly legacy. People are going to come behind us. Paul knew that. Paul said, "Look, there's some things I did so I leave a godly legacy." We talked about how Peter did the same thing, and I told you last week how that Joe Murray left a legacy for me. I didn't have a father, so Brother Murray, was really a real inspiration to my life. And legacies aren't just about land and money and houses and materialistic things. But let me talk to you about something that is a legacy that maybe you never thought it would be. And let me just say this to you: words that you speak are legacies. Legacies. In other words, what will people remember that you said to them? And let me give you some just fundamental things. These are such infant level teaching, but it is so important. In other words, when you're going through this life, you need to say a lot of "I love you." I love you. You should say that continually. Um, or maybe something like, you know what, thank you for being my wife. Or how about you saying things like, you know what, it's so good to see you. You say, well, what is it? When you die, are people going to really know you really cared about them? Thank you for all you've done for me. How about it was good to see you? You think this is elementary, and it is. But let me tell you, is how often do we go through this life and we don't even recognize people? I was just thinking, Alice and I, we went and got a bite to eat at Culver's restaurant the other day, and we walked in there and we sat down, and there was a booth with three ladies there. And Alice and I sat down. I looked over and saw this one lady, and she used to work at the bank across the street from the church here. And right after I got into town, we set up a bank account there at that bank. And so she was the teller, and one of the other ladies at the booth there was the teller also. But you know what? She told me. She said, she said your son would come to the bank and he would ride his skateboard into the bank and ride it across the floor of the bank, right up to the desk where I was waiting. And he was always a delight. He was always asking me, "How are you doing? And how's your life?" And as a young boy, she said, and she said, I saw him just the other day. And of course, Marvin's moved away and pastoring in the Cayman Islands, but not too long ago. It was just last month. And she said, but I saw him the other day. And she said, he got that beard and shaved his head. But she goes, I knew it was him because of the way he spoke to me. And I could tell it was your son. And you know what? Really, so Marvin left somewhat of a legacy here by letting people know, look, I care about you. You know, it's important here that you and I understand how deep a legacy is. This picture that you see is a young man named Jordan Ulicki, and Jordan was nothing but a blessing to my life. Jordan, I don't know how to say it to you, but he was always would come by my office when church was over. He's in heaven now. He went home to be with the Lord, early age, and in an event that really it was God controlled. And but here's what he would do. Seldom would he leave this church where he wouldn't stop by and say, "Preacher, is there anything you need before I leave? Is there anything you need before I leave?" In other words, you see, he was that type of guy. God took him home. I think he was 21 years old, but he left a legacy to his preacher that I want you to know, preacher, before I go home tonight, I will make sure that your needs are met. There are two kinds of people in the world. When you look at an old photograph album, you see different people in there, and one was a blessing, another one may not have been a blessing. One was a burden, maybe another one wasn't. You know, here's a picture of John Brooks. And John Brooks left a legacy of mercy and kindness in our ministry. Brother Brooks worked for me for 11 years running a home for troubled boys and girls and left nothing but a legacy of kindness and mercy. And then this is a picture of my mom's dad. And this man here, We called him Dad Ramey. He was a Baptist preacher, and he won me to Christ in 1964. He left a godly legacy. Um, and so we have these godly legacies. I'm going to encourage you that, when there'll be a day when someone will pull up a picture of you and they're going to say something about that picture. And you say, I don't really care what they think. You should care what they think. You really should care what kind of legacy that you've left them. We'll take up here next week, okay?